I'm back. So, I just filmed my Super Mario Brothers movie review, and as promised, I'm going to go ahead and give you my thoughts on Sam Raimi's The Evil Dead. And, this movie was released in 1981, and this is known to be Sam Raimi's debut project. And Sam Raimi is known for horror, first and foremost. So, in celebration of Evil Dead Rise coming out next Friday, I'm going to start my Evil Dead review and ranking series. So let's go ahead and talk about this classic. So this was released in 1981, and this is the story of 5 college youths who go to a cabin in the woods, and they unleash the most evil things that come alive in the woods, thanks to the Necronomicon, which is the Book of the Dead. So, this movie stars Bruce Campbell as Ash Williams, and he's one of the most recognizable horror icons ever. So, this movie is definitely the scariest of the franchise before the remake. So this one has 0 comedy, and it's all for the horror. And this movie is really, really unsettling and really creepy. But it is low budget, so some of the CGI and makeup doesn't look good nowadays. This is like a 42-year-old movie. And it really, really showed when I rewatched this today. But it is a really fun, bloody time. So, there is a scene in here that can trigger a lot of people, and it is the tree rape scene. So one of the women decides to go out on her own into the woods, and then the trees come alive, and yeah. So she's one of the first victims to get possessed, and there is some really, really kooky possession looks in this movie. And the girl in the cellar was always the scariest part of this movie. And it really freaked me out when I first saw this as a kid. But rewatching it today, I really didn't feel fazed by it. Because, I mean, I guess I've seen it, but when I was a kid, yeah, it horrified me. But, yeah, this is just your basic cabin in the woods horror story with demons. It's a really, really solid film, and it was released in probably one of the best years for horror. I mean, Friday the 13th Part 2, The Burning, which I watched a couple days ago, and My Bloody Valentine all came out in that year. So, yeah, a great year for horror. But, going back to The Evil Dead, there is also the fact that the victims who were possessed, they manipulate you thinking that they're not possessed anymore and they're almost unkillable. But once Ash burned the Necronomicon, the evil died. So, I really do enjoy this film quite a bit. I haven't seen it as much times as I need to have seen it, but it is definitely a horror classic. And for a debut film, Sam Raimi definitely earned his spot in horror filmmaking. So, you definitely can see the stylized violence and gore throughout some of the Evil Dead movies. And there's not really much gore in Drag Me to Hell, but that is still a very solid Raimi film. Then, of course, he did the Spider-Man trilogy in the 2000s. Very solid trilogy, except for the third one. I don't know what they did there. But, yeah. And not to mention, he also directed last year's Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. And that was a really wild one, too. But Sam Raimi is definitely known for horror, and he should definitely stick with it. Because this is definitely one of my favorite horror movies of all time. So overall, The Evil Dead for me gets an A+. Because this movie is perfect. It is very cheesy and campy, but it's meant to be that way. And it's definitely a surefire horror classic. And those are my thoughts on 1981's The Evil Dead. So, hopefully tomorrow or Wednesday, expect an Evil Dead 2 review. And then after that, an Army of Darkness review. And then probably Renfield. Then possibly Air. And then I will also review the remake of Evil Dead. So I still have quite a few videos to film. Just look forward to all of them. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Adios. Peace.